So House and Habit, Jessica Kraus, who has a following on Instagram of 1.2 million people, she has now been, whatever term you want to use, shut down on Instagram. And apparently this is a result of a mass reporting instigated by Chrissie Bixler. Now, if you haven't been following the saga the last few days, Chrissie Bixler is the most vocal, has been the most vocal of Danny Masterson's accusers, and she was the prime instigator of all of this. She's been the one for years now, really pushing this, got the other, accusers together, and has been, again, the most vocal. Her husband has also been very vocal. Cedric Bixler Zavala, frontman for the Mars Volta and some other bands, I don't know. He's been posting on this for years, and again, just recently. So here's the thing. House and Habit Jessica Kraus, she received information from anonymous sources. And let me just say, because there's some confusion on this, when Jessica Kraus says that she has anonymous tips, or she's been talking to anonymous sources, I know from firsthand experience with her and other things that have come up that we've talked about, and I know from firsthand experience that she's not saying that the sources are anonymous to her. It's not like the woman just gets these like random tips from someone she doesn't know and then she throws it up on the internet. No, she knows her sources. It's just that they want to remain anonymous in public. And so I've seen this happen before with House and Habit with Jessica. In fact, I even knew one of her anonymous sources on a different story. So if you think back to the stuff that she was reporting during the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, there was a story in particular that she reported, and I don't want to cite the story because then people will know probably who I'm talking about. But there was a particular story that Jessica reported on during the Depp Heard trial, a story about Amber that made Amber look very bad, and Jessica reported it from an anonymous source, but she knew who that source was, and I knew who that source was because that source had come to me with the same story. And we both verified this person's identity. It was a very famous person. If I said the name, you would know it. So I know from firsthand experience with Jessica and with these types of situations that when she says she has an anonymous source, it doesn't mean that it's just some rando contacting her online. No, it's someone that she knows is who they say they are, and they have shown her verification. Okay? So, and look, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take Jessica's word for it. I'm not saying to you, the public, that when Jessica says, here's a source, that you should take that as credible. Okay? I'm just wanting everyone to understand that when she says anonymous, she doesn't mean that it's literally some random person that she doesn't know where she's getting this information from. That would be irresponsible and it would be stupid, but that's not what she's doing. So the sources that she uses in her work, the anonymous sources, are very well known to her, and she confirms their identity and seeks to confirm their stories. So she was contacted by someone who, if I believe Jessica, and I do, she was contacted by someone in Hollywood. In fact, actually by a number of individuals in Hollywood and in these circles who had these people in relationships with Danny Masterson and have been in his circle, and they also know, these people that have been talking to Jessica behind the scenes, they also know his accusers. And so apparently what has happened is that there were a bunch of people like me who figured that Danny Masterson, even if he were convicted, that he wouldn't spend long in prison, that he wouldn't get a long prison sentence. Because I had always heard all these stories about how when people are convicted of rape, the justice system is too lenient, and you'll hear these stories like, oh, he raped this woman and then he's out in 6 months, or he's out in a year or two. And so I always thought, well, the justice system is extremely lenient on rapists and they don't get long sentences. So even if Danny Masterson is innocent, even if he was falsely accused, which I'm not asserting, I'm still looking into it, but even if he was innocent, even if he was falsely accused, I figured, well, you know what, it'll suck, but at the most he'll have to serve 5 years or so, and then he'll be out. And so, yeah, that sucks, but it's like, it's not the biggest tragedy in the world. There are lots of people, as we know, in our society who were falsely accused and who serve prison sentences that they shouldn't be serving. So it's like, yeah, that sucks for Danny Masterson and also for all those other falsely accused people, if he's falsely accused. But when I heard that he had gotten a 30-year sentence and that he would not have any hope of getting out until he had served at least 25 years, then that made it super fucking serious. And I started paying attention. So I am late to the party. I hate that I'm late to the party, but I've started paying attention. Now, how does that relate to the Jessica Kraus House and Habit stuff? Well, I get the idea from talking to her, from seeing what she's posted, but also from talking to Jessica behind the scenes. It seems that there were a lot of people in Hollywood and friends and associates of Danny Masterson and people who know these accusers going way back and know the whole situation, or know a lot of it. It seems like there were a lot of people who were also caught off guard and who were just hoping that Danny Masterson would not get a long sentence. And so what has happened, it seems, is that this super long sentence that he's gotten has basically shaken up a number of people who were feeling bad for the guy because they believe that he's innocent and they believe that he was the victim of a hoax, or at least that there are major credibility problems with the accusers, and there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't see or understand. And so these people, their conscience has been bothering them since Danny Masterson got this really long sentence, and they went to Jessica because they don't want to go out on a limb and put their names out there, right? Nobody's that brave these days, but they wanted to try to put out some information or some insights that would form or would contribute to a counter narrative. And so basically what's happened is that there are these people who are talking to Jessica who have knowledge of this situation and know the players involved and believe that that Chrissie Bixler is the ringleader of a kind of a hoax against Danny Masterson. And again, I'm not saying that that's true or false, but Chrissie Bixler, remember, she was the accuser that was not believed by either jury. So the first jury was hung. The second jury, they convicted Danny Masterson on a couple of counts related to the other accusers, two other women. But they rejected Chrissie Carnell's claims. And so anyway, the point is there are people now that have contacted House and Habit, have contacted Jessica, and they have apparently shown her messages, text messages. I believe she's listened to voice messages. There's actually like real evidence, real information that she has been given. And she was going to share it this week. I'm not sure if she was going to share all of it, but she was going to share some of it, and she was going to get into these insights that the people contacting her are giving her about what has been happening behind the scenes, and also about the fact that apparently there are a ton of people close to this situation who believe that Chrissie Bixler is bonkers, or at least is in the vein of a lot of these other MeToo accusers, and is on this vendetta against Danny Masterson for these sources believe for things that he didn't do. And so what happened was Jessica, House and Habit, she had posted the last couple of days, she had posted on her Instagram basically setting this up and letting people know that this is what she would be talking about over the next week or two, that she was going to be sharing this contrarian perspective and this contrarian information about Masterson case and about Chrissie Bixler, who apparently has multiple people behind the scenes terrified because Jessica says they know this Chrissie Bixler to be highly vindictive, highly volatile, and very aggressive. And all of that now is being proved by the way that Chrissie Bixler is overreacting to Jessica posting this stuff. You know, Chrissie Bixler, sweetheart, you won. You won. The guy is going to be in prison for the next 25 plus years. The mainstream media is running with your story, and the story of the other accusers has pounded Masterson into the dust, and you have been celebrated as another Me Too survivor. So is it really, if all that has happened and you feel confident, Chrissie, in your story and in the truth, why is it a big deal to you if this one little corner of the internet is going to post some stuff, some anonymous stuff that'll make you look bad? Why is that such a big deal? You just can't handle any dissent. You can't handle anyone anywhere on any corner of the internet posting something to the counter narrative. You just can't. I'm always amazed at people who get into this ring, so to speak, get into this arena, and then when they get criticized or when they get pushback or when some other people dare to present a countering opinion, then they just have a meltdown and they seek to censor these people. So what has happened is that House and Habit, she has been, whatever term you want to use, her page has been wiped, she's been suspended, she's not there. And I understand she has a backup account and everybody should go to that. And I believe Jessica's going to be posting an article on her Substack, an essay addressing all of this soon, and I'll let you know when she does. But she's gone from Instagram for right now because of that. And Chrissie Bixler has been putting lies up about House and Habit. Chrissie Bixler claimed yesterday in an Instagram post, she claimed that Jessica, House and Habit, had been contacting her, DMing her, and threatening her. Now, any of us who've had any experience with House and Habit, with Jessica, especially people who've actually gotten to know her and talked to her and become friends with her behind the scenes, we know that is such complete BS. And so if Chrissie Bixler is going to lie about that, why would I trust her on anything? So that's where things stand. And look, I continue to lose followers every hour. I look at my Instagram and my YouTube, and yeah, I see them dropping off. But I guess that when it comes down to it, I care more about standing up for what I believe in, or standing up against injustices or against censorship. I guess I care more about that when it comes down to it than I do my follower or subscriber count, because people keep saying to me, oh, look, your followers going down, your subscribers going down, whatever. I see it, and I have people messaging me saying, I'm never going to contribute to you again, and I want a refund on my PayPal. And you're not getting a refund, idiots. But that's fine, whatever, cross the Rubicon on that, because it is not fair. Even if Danny Masterson is guilty, which I am so far from being able to believe that or assert that right now, because I've seen so many red flags now that I've started looking into this. And but regardless of whether he's guilty or innocent, in situations that are this serious, particularly when someone has now been given a 25+ year sentence, basically it's a life sentence for him, it should be okay. It should be okay to present a counter narrative, to ask questions, or yes, even to present the testimony of anonymous sources, anonymous but verified sources, who say that there's a whole other side to this that we're not seeing, that we're not understanding, and that Chrissie Bixler is a highly problematic personality, yes, in the vein of an Amber Heard or an Evan Rachel Wood or some of these other people. That is how it is starting to seem to me. And her going on a campaign last night to get Jessica, House and Habit, taken down from Instagram, and her rants and her threats and her misreporting of her interactions with Jessica, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence in her credibility, in Chrissie Bixler's credibility. And people say, oh, well, her husband, her husband's on her side too, and he's the lead for Mars Volta. Well, that doesn't mean anything to me. I don't care about any of these bands, so that means nothing. I don't even care about the Marilyn Manson music. What I care about is that our society seems to be on some kind of a crazed runaway train, and very few people have the courage to even raise their hand and say, hey, there's actually a different perspective here. And I understand that Danny Masterson was convicted in a court of law, but he got a mistrial first. And look, in my world, if there's a mistrial and then a conviction, then I have some doubts. I have some questions. What was the problem with that first jury? And I don't even trust the justice system. You know, yes, it's always nice when you get a verdict, or it's always nice to be able to say, well, look, this was adjudicated by a court of law. I think that's important. I think that's great, but it's not the be all end all. And we all have known too many people who have been falsely accused and convicted and have served long sentences when it turns out they were guilty. So that's just not enough. And my concern here, and this is Jessica's concern as well, as I understand it, one of my concerns in this case is that I think that the stench of Scientology is so overpowering, was so overpowering in this, and the seeming efforts by Scientology to protect Masterson, to the extent that that has been proven, which it really kind of hasn't, and I'll get into that in a moment. But anyway, but to the extent that that became the big narrative around this case, Danny Masterson, Scientologist, Scientology helped to cover up what he did. I actually think that really hurt him in court. And that's one of the differences apparently between the first trial and the second trial, is that in the second trial there was more anti-Scientology perspectives that were let into this trial. And I think that it's possible that people are so negative about Scientology, which is totally fine. People have been asking me, do you know about Scientology? Dude, I read Going Clear. It's like 500-page book. I read Going Clear years ago. I've read biographies about Tom Cruise. Andrew Morton's biography, which got into the Scientology stuff a lot. I could probably talk to you for over an hour about L. Ron Hubbard's biography and about the major tenets of Scientology. So I'm not going to put myself up there with like Mike Rinder or Leah Remini as the ultimate Scientology expert. But yes, I know enough about it. But to me, there are two separate issues here. Yes, there's the Scientology aspect of this, but then there's the basic fundamental issue of, did Danny Masterson actually do this shit? And I'm telling you, look, I have looked into too many of these MeToo type cases now to have credulity. I cannot take any of this at face value anymore, because I have seen that we are living, and this is what I keep trying to explain to people, we are living in a new era where there is a perfect storm that has been created between media and between this new emergent sexual panic that our society is going through, and Me Too, and the celebration of victimization and of victims. All of this is coming together at the same time, and it is producing a glut, a shitload of cases of false allegations. And people say, well, you know, big Hollywood stars, they have it easier than your average person. Not anymore. Not anymore. Because the big Hollywood star thing, it's working against people in these cases now. It's working against them. Because it's one reason why George Gascon and his office, I think, went after Masterson to the degree they did, even though it's a 20-year-old case with really hardly any evidence, I think is because, well, Gascon said it himself. Just a few days ago, when Masterson's sentence was handed down, Gascon said, my big priority, my top priority, is demonstrating that the Hollywood elite can no longer abuse women. Well, yeah, Gascon, I understand that's your top priority because you fucked up at everything else. Even, you know, all these articles about Gascon coming out saying that even woke LA liberals are tired of him. He's been a complete disaster. And so the man has nothing left. He has no other cards to play but the Hollywood thing. And that is why also he has refused to clear Marilyn Manson. And I'm not trying to drag him into this, but he has refused to clear Manson despite the fact that the LA Sheriff's Department, the detectives, closed the case. They sent the file to Gascon. This is all public knowledge. They sent the file to Gascon, and Gascon is just, because they know it's a hoax. And I've talked to one of the detectives. They know, I can tell they know it's a hoax. But but Gascon is refusing to close it because it doesn't gel with his image that he's cultivating as someone who's going to be really tough on the Hollywood elite. Well, the Hollywood elite, their eliteness, it's not getting them out of anything anymore. It's making things worse for them. It's making them huge targets. And some of these guys, like Manson, and possibly like Masterson, I don't know yet, but possibly like him, I think that they are targeted specifically because of their fame. And I think that's why in a number of these cases, once the prime instigator gets the ball rolling, and then you have these other people coming out of the woodwork. So to me, in these Hollywood cases, it doesn't matter if you have multiple accusers. That doesn't really mean anything today. It just means that you had a famous person who's potentially attracted more liars or more crazy people or more women who, well, in the vein of an Amber Heard or an Evan Rachel Wood. Now, the Masterson stuff, I started looking into his case again. I had tried last week and I couldn't find any of this evidence that people were telling me was out there. So I started looking into it again yesterday. And from what I can see, the case comes down to these 2 letters that the mother of one of the accusers wrote to Scientology claiming that her daughter had been raped and that Scientology was covering it up. That's not nothing. But that can't be case closed. That can't be case closed because, look, there's other cases where the mothers of false accusers have said, yes, my daughter was assaulted, my daughter was raped. What else is your mom going to say? I have no doubt, well, I do have doubt actually, but it's not hard for me to believe that an accuser could be crazy or could be lying, and then she tells her mom this BS stuff. Do you think that that mothers always get the truth in these situations? Do you think Evan Rachel Wood's mother believes that her daughter is lying when she gets out there and she does interviews and she trashes Manson and all of this? No. So that is not those 2 letters from the mother of one of these women, that is not hardcore evidence. It is a piece of evidence added to the mix. But it's not. And truthfully, there was a delay in some of these women reporting this to the police. Now, I understand that they say, well, it's because we were told in our church that you report it to Scientology first, and then that didn't work, so then we reported it to the police. Okay, I understand. But I'm just saying, I have not seen conclusive evidence yet that Masterson is guilty. I see a few little things here that, yes, could be helpful, but this is not what I was told was available in terms of evidence. I've had people for the last week or so telling me that there's all these files and stuff and these papers showing that Scientology knew that he had raped these women and they were covering it up and everything. Well, where are they? I don't see them. I don't think that's available. And we don't have any eyewitness testimony. Did anyone get up in court? I understand there were some anonymous sources. I'm talking about anonymous sources who spoke to the Daily Beast. But where in the 8-day trial that occurred with Masterson was there a witness who got on the stand and corroborated what these women were saying? Maybe I just haven't gotten to it yet. I will continue to dig deeper. But my point to all of you is that there are enough problems or questions in this case, in this Masterson case, that it is absolutely not out of line for someone like House and Habit, Jessica Kraus, to be presenting alternative perspectives or the views or evidence of alternative sources. And particularly since the accusers, they've gotten what they want. They won, as they've been gloating about online, as Chrissie Carnell and her husband have been gloating about up until recently, and now they're pissed off at Jessica Kraus. I'm not at all convinced that this might not be a hoax. And I'm not convinced that it is a hoax either, but I'm just saying that I continue to see a bunch of red flags. I'm researching it now. I haven't yet come across anything to me that would lend enough credibility to a 20-year-old he said, she said situation. And it is entirely possible that Scientology might have tried to cover up these accusations, but that doesn't mean the accusations are valid. Do you realize that some of the accusers in this case have also accused multiple other people of sexual assault? Do you realize that? Do you realize that the accusers in this case, some of them multiple other people? And I hear through the grapevine, and this isn't something I've been able to verify, So I'm saying that I haven't been able to verify it, but I hear through the grapevine that one of the accusers is currently suing her ex-husband for marital rape. So these women that Masterson supposedly assaulted, they're just getting assaulted by a bunch of people out there. Meanwhile, I have never been sexually assaulted in my life. You know, that's the thing that perplexes me too. I know it's not all about my experience, but somehow I've managed to get through 43 years on this earth as a sexually active woman with in my younger years a number of partners. Dylan Dennis can get on my case next. But in my younger years with a number of partners, and I was never sexually assaulted one single time. I don't recognize this hellscape, this predatory hellscape that a number of you claim to be living in. But whatever. Yes, it is theoretically possible for these Masterson accusers to have been sexually assaulted by other people, but it also diminishes their credibility in my mind. And when I see the way Chrissie Bixler is comporting herself on Instagram, when I see the way her husband is comporting himself, if you go back and you look up Cedric Bixler Zavala's old text from the past several years on all of this, he is clearly a drama king. Do you know that Chrissie Bixler's husband, Cedric Bixler Zavala, the Mars Volta guy, do you know that he seriously believes that TMZ, the LAPD, all major media are bought and paid for by the Church of Scientology? I just saw the tweet from several years ago. I'll put it back up again if anybody wants to see it. But Chrissie Bixler and her husband apparently believe that the LAPD and TMZ and all these different institutions, he said it right there in a tweet, are, quote, bought and paid for by the Church of Scientology. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Ridiculous. And so when we have that kind of paranoia, those kinds of lies and misrepresentations and crazy ideas, then how can I trust anything these people say? How? So, anyway, y'all can keep unsubscribing, you can keep unfollowing, you can keep throwing fits. You're not getting your PayPal money back. But I'm going to keep standing up for what I think is right. And again, it may very well turn out that Danny Masterson, after I finally finish looking into this week, that I say, okay, I think he's probably guilty. But I've been looking into it. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And what I see are a hell of a lot of red flags the other direction. But regardless, even if he is guilty, Jessica Kraus, House and Habit, should be able to present a counter narrative. And so that's where we are. See y'all later. Bye. Oh, and one more thing. Luis Rubiales, that Spanish guy who kissed that woman and, you know, led to the end of the world, so to speak, everybody freaking out. Well, he's finally resigned. He's finally resigned. And I watched that interview that he did with Piers Morgan. It's on my Instagram. Check it out. I watched that interview and I saw a man who was beaten and broken and very, very sad and depressed. And it's very sad and painful to see that because I was so proud of him 2 weeks ago when Rubiales stood up in front of all those people and he said, I will not resign. I will not resign. And I celebrated that and I said, oh, it's wonderful to see someone having guts. But you know what? The mob just will not abide anyone having guts or standing up against accusations or standing up against a perspective on Rubiales that I think was way overwrought and way out of proportion. The mob cannot tolerate dissent or courage. And so he just got beaten down day after day after day. And apparently the last straw, he talked about this in the interview with Piers Morgan, apparently the last straw is when friends and family came to him and said, you have to start thinking about your dignity now, and you have to start thinking about the people you love and the people who depend on you, and you need to resign. And I thought, what a fucking horrible world we live in, where it's considered dignified to give in to the mob, where where courage is considered a sign of egotism or narcissism, and where in order to demonstrate that you love your family, that you have to bend the knee. What a fucking disgusting world. Bye. Okay, so what's up, everybody?